So we're going to carry on with our shopping cart. We were able to save to the database, but this temp username really isn't going to work. So we're going to need a better way to figure out the username. So I want to deal with that, and then we'll build our cart method and cart page that displays the contents of the cart. So what I'm actually going to do is write a separate function. So I'm going to write a function, string function called getCartUsername. And we're going to call this function before we save to the database. So we've got a few scenarios here. So what we want to do is figure out if our user's logged in. If the user's logged in, we can use their username to attach to their cart. We'll basically attach it to their email address. So that scenario is fairly simple. However, if they're anonymous, we don't know their email, so we need some other way to uniquely identify a user. So the first thing we'll do, and then once we've identified them, we'll store that value in a session variable. So first we'll check if user already has a cart in the session object. So we're going to check the session object, which in .NET Core is a child of the HTTP context class. So we're going to check for a session variable called cart username. So if this is empty, that means there's nothing in this person's cart so far. And we'll get this. We need to make a reference, resolve a reference. So if I accept this, it wants to make a reference to Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.HTTP. So I'll accept that reference. So we've got two scenarios. So if the user hasn't put anything in their cart yet, so I'm going to initialize an empty string variable. Then we want to know if the user is logged in or anonymous. If our user is authenticated, we'll take their email address and we'll store that in our session variable. So cart username. So we can use the built-in user object. And the user.identity.name, that'll give us their email address. If they're not logged in, we need some other way to identify this user and link. If they put multiple items in the cart, we need a way to link them together. But they're not logged in, so we don't know their email address. So what we can do is generate a random string as the username for now. So to do this, .NET has a GUID class. This will generate a globally unique identifier. We'll call the new GUID.toString method. And then we want to add this so I'll call set string. We'll call our variable cart username. And we'll populate it either with their email address or with some random string. Now, this only happens if they haven't already put, this happens the first time they put an item in their cart. And then we just return so once a user's already put something in their cart, we don't need to generate a new session variable. This only happens the first time they put an item in their cart. And then after that, we just keep reusing. So long as the user's browser session is active and hasn't timed out, we just keep using that same value. So we'll try this. Oh, sorry, there's the method. We're not actually calling the method yet. I think I missed that step, sorry. So here's our method. I'll leave it up for a minute. In our add to cart, we need to call this method. It will return a string, and we want to set that string equal to our username field. So we're either saving the email address if they're logged in, and this random unique ID, unique string if they're anonymous. So we're going to get, so set, not set, then get cart username. So we'll call our function, and in here on line 63, where I'm creating the new object, I want to take out my hard-coded username and replace that with our variable. So then I can try shopping under two different scenarios. One is an anonymous user, and a second instance, I can use a different browser where I'm logged in as a customer. And we can see what we get. So first I'm going to shop as an anonymous user. And then I'll go in another browser as an authenticated user. So in Chrome, I'm going to log into the site, not as an administrator, but as a customer. In Firefox, I'm going to stay an anonymous user. So as an anonymous user, I'm going to buy 2 items. Okay. We get this. Sessions are not configured. So I'm trying to use the session object. Well, first I'm checking, is there a session variable? This HTTP context session object, it's not available by default. We need to manually enable session. So we can do that in our startup. So if I go to my startup file, There's two places we need to do it. In our configure services method, and it's important that sessions are enabled before this line, before adding MVC. We want to enable session support before adding MVC support. It won't work if we do it after. So in here, we call add session. That's one place we need to do it. And there's one more change in here. So that's in configure services right before the last line. So this line is here by default. So I put this after my Facebook and Google services. And then down here in my configure method, again, before we say use MVC, we want to call app.use session. So we can't use session variables, we can't read from them, we can't write to them until we enable this in startup. So this is new to core. If we were doing a traditional .NET framework, there's no enabling. The session object is just available automatically. So let's try again. So again, first I'll do this as an anonymous user, then I'll try it in a separate browser where I'm logged in. And then we can inspect what we get in our database. So I'll add one of these. Hopefully we don't get any session errors. Okay, that's fine. We just get our redirect error to cart. And if I go back and add one of these, and if I check my database, notice I now have this random string for username, but it's the same value for each of those products because it's the same session. If I go over to Chrome, where I'm logged in, and try to shop, I can add one of these and add one of these products. And it attaches my cart to my email address in the event that I'm logged in. So these two items I purchased as an anonymous user. The next two items I purchased as a user who has an account and is logged in. The benefit to the store, obviously, is they want people to shop logged in. As a logged in user, here's why. If I don't want to close Chrome. Let's see. Okay. So by attaching them to my email address, this means the user's cart will persist. So if they close their browser and come back later, if they log into the site, these items will still be attached to their cart. With this user here, if they don't check out, we're not going to know who they are later on. So we can't, in effect, give this cart back to a user when they're anonymous. Yes, we could store it in a cookie. That would be one possible way of doing it. So now I want to build the cart method in Vue. So after we add to cart, we can stop getting this redirect error and we can actually show the user what's in their shopping cart. So I'll make a new method called cart. Doesn't take any parameters. So what we want to do, we'll return a view. We want to use this cart username and go and get all the items in the user's shopping cart and pass them to the UI. Get current users shopping cart items and pass to the view. So I'll create a variable called cart items. And we want to query the carts table where now we can't reference the session object in here because this is a link query and it has no knowledge of the session object. So get current cart username. So we want to read the cart username with get string. And then we'll pass that into our where clause. So this will give us all the items in the user shopping cart. The other thing maybe I'll do here, well, we'll come back to this. That should be all we need in this method. We'll add one little feature after if we get this to work. And now we should be able to create the cart page. We can scaffold the view using the list template. List all the items in the cart. So we'll use the list template and the cart model. And that'll give us about 75% of what we want on that page. So after we build, if we add a view, we call it cart. We'll pick the list template and the model class is carts. So this should show the user everything that they have put in their shopping cart. Our templates list, our model is carts. Now, we're also going to see here, I think, different behavior when we're anonymous and when we're logged in. We'll see why in a minute. So I'm going to go back, start my shopping process again. So I'll add the first product. So it brings me to my cart page now. It shows me the quantity, the price. Notice it shows me the username. If I do this in Chrome, I'm going to get a different result. So notice in Chrome, after I restarted my app, look at my cart. I have the item I just put in it, but I also have the two items I had put in it before. because it's attached to my username and I'm logged in. When I restarted my app, it wipes out what's in the session. So any items I put in the cart previously, they're gone when I'm anonymous. If I'm logged in, it remembers because they're stored in the database. So this page, again, we've got to change it. We've got edit, delete, create new. So we'll want to make a few changes. The product name isn't showing up, which it should. The total isn't here. So we'll go ahead and change this. So I'm going to take out the create new link. I'm going to make product the first column. So I'm going to move these, the heading and the TD. So it's product, quantity, price. I don't need the username field. We can take that out. We don't need to show that to the users. So we'll delete the username heading and the username column. I'm going to take out my details link. Now my product name also isn't showing up. So we'll need to address this. So if we refresh our cart, things should be moved around a little bit. So quantity, price. Our product name isn't here because this is in a parent model. So if we want the product name to show up, which we definitely do, it's not a very useful page without knowing what products are here. We got to modify our query a bit. So in our where, we need a dot include so we need to include the parent object. And we get a does not contain a definition for include, which we can fix by referencing Entity Framework Core. So if we add the reference to Entity Framework Core with the helper, this should populate our product list. Now I've got to rebuild. If I refresh in Firefox, my cart's going to be empty again because it's destroying my session. So those products are no longer attached to this user session. If I refresh in Chrome, everything should still be here because I'm logged in and things are attached to my email address. So if I refresh here in Firefox, my cart's going to be empty. If I refresh in Chrome, my items should still be here. Oh, they're not here because if I put one more thing in my cart, they'll come back because they are in the database. So in Chrome, if I add this item, remembers what was in before. With Firefox, I'm going to have to shop all over again. But now my product names are showing because we've included the product in our query. So now we can see the name of the product. If we want, we could make this a link to the product details page. So we're getting here. So I've added this and accepted the reference to Entity Framework Core to make this functional. A few more changes to our cart page and we'll call it a day. To make it a little easier to read, I'll add the table striped and table hover classes to our table tag up on line 10. I also want to format the price as currency. So I'm going to change this to string.format. And I'm going to right align the prices. So I've added class equals text right around the price heading and price values. So we've got our striping. So what we'll want to do is we're going to create a running total so we can display it. And then we'll also add continue shopping and checkout buttons. We're not going to worry about edit and delete for today. We'll come back to those later. What do I want to do here? Okay, so up here, let's create a variable called total. We'll initialize it to 0. Whoops, I guess that should be a decimal. So now in our loop, we can update the total each time we go around. So we'll use plus equals. We'll multiply the current item price times the current item quantity. And then we can create a footer row at the bottom that displays the total price with our checkout and keep shopping buttons. So this is going to go outside our loop. I guess that would go to. So and then we'll format our total variable as currency. And then we can put in 2 buttons in our last column. So I'll make that an A. So this one is just a link that goes back to the main shopping page. They'll both look like buttons. So if I refresh my cart here, hopefully it shows us the total, and I should have 2 buttons down here. So something like this. So it totals our cart. We can keep shopping. So we'll leave edit and delete and checkout. We won't do any of those things. I'm going to do one more very small enhancement. I want to add a link to the cart in my nav bar. And if we can, we might want to show a number beside it. If we can do that quickly, we will. If not, I'll think about the best way to do it. We can do it next week. So in our layout file, let's just open up layout. Beside our shop, I'll just copy my shop link. Our controller will be shop, but our action will be cart. So now we can go to the cart page from anywhere in our app. We can probably use a session variable to store how many items are in their cart, I think. We'll try it. So every time we add an item to the cart, actually, I guess it would be they add to cart and we go here. So let's try this. HTTP. So we'll set a string called cart count. And we'll set this equal to cart items dot count dot toString. So this will tell us how many items are in the cart. I don't know if we can use this value to output this in our layout or not. We'll try it. If not, we'll just call it a day. I'll kick it around for the week and we can figure it out next week. We'll just see if we could actually include it. I have no idea if this is going to work. Something like that. No, okay. We leave that alone. We'll try to figure that next week. So I'll push everything to Git. So next week we want to allow users to remove from cart. If we have time, we might leave edit it. We'll only do that if we've got time. And then we want to build the checkout page. So at this point, users can get to here anonymously. Once they click checkout, they're going to have to register and log in. They can fill out information about billing and shipping, and then we can invoke a payment gateway to save the order, and then we can build an order. We can scaffold out order history and order details pages. Does anybody have any questions before we go for the day? Okay, things are pushed.